Every week, another company announces layoff, and every time the explanation sounds the same. AI made these roles unnecessary. But what if that's just the easy answer and not the real story? Today, I want to break down what's actually driving the wave of layoffs we're seeing right now, why AI keeps getting blamed, what's really happening inside the companies, and what leaders should be thinking about as they design their organizations for the next few years. This isn't a technology video, it's a leadership and strategy discussion. Now, if you work in a large organization, you have probably felt this already. Teams feel tense, hiring freezes appear quietly, roles are suddenly under review. And in leadership meetings, the conversation shifts from growth to structure and from ambition to efficiency. I've seen this so many times. This pattern is repetitive. And what's happening now follows a very familiar script with just a new label attached to it called AI. In many transformation programs and boardroom discussions I've been part of, moments like this are rarely about a single technology. They're about pressure. Pressure from markets, pressure from investors, pressure from cost bases that no longer match how the businesses actually operate. AI didn't invent that pressure. It simply arrived at the moment leaders were already looking for a reason to act. Now, the first insight is that AI is not the cause, it's the catalyst. Most organizations cutting roles today were already carrying complexity they hadn't challenged in years. Layers upon layers of process, duplicated roles across the functions, management structures built for a totally different era create those problems. But it gave leaders something very powerful: the permission. Permission to finally ask questions that felt uncomfortable before. Permission to redesign work that has been left untouched for too long. So when you hear AI driven layoffs, translate it very carefully. What it actually means is we were overdue for a structural change and AI made the timing unavoidable. You've probably seen this play out. A role that existed because a process was slow, a team built around manual coordination, a function whose value was never re examined once it was established. These roles didn't disappear overnight because of technology. They disappeared because no one had clearly re articulated why they still mattered. AI just exposed that question. Now, the second insight is that most layoffs today are about reallocation and not reduction. Companies are not simply shrinking, they're shifting resources, often very aggressively, towards areas they believe will define their future, which is your AI capability, data platforms, product engineering, cybersecurity, and advanced operations, among the few. At the same time, they're pulling investments away from roles that support yesterday's operating model. Now, this is not a moral judgment, it's a very strategic one, and leaders who misunderstand this make the wrong calls. In every large transformation, there is a moment where leaders must choose between protecting the familiar and investing in the future. That choice is very uncomfortable. It creates internal resistance and is rarely explained well. So the explanation gets simplified that AI did this. But simplification helps headlines and not leadership. The third point to understand is the biggest risk right now is not cutting too many jobs, but it's cutting jobs without redesigning the work. Some organizations are removing roles but keeping the same decision logic, the same governance layer, the same accountability gaps. And that's not transformation, that's actually subtraction. And subtraction without redesign almost always leads to burnout, confusion, and slow execution rather than agility. AI should force a much deeper question. What should humans actually focus on now, and not just what can we remove? Now, this is where leadership maturity shows. Strong leaders don't ask how to cut faster, they ask how value creation is changing. They rethink roles, they rethink decision rights, they rethink what good work actually looks like in an AI enabled organization. And that takes clarity rather than panic. Now, if you're a leader watching this, you might be thinking, my organization hasn't figured this out yet, or simply we're reacting rather than designing. That's more common than most people admit, and that's exactly why this moment matters the most. So, what should leaders actually focus on right now? There are three things to understand. First, Separate the narrative from the strategy. AI is part of the story, but never the whole story. Second, redesign roles before removing them. Ask what judgment, creativity, and accountability should look like now. And third, communicate honestly. People can handle difficult change. What they struggle with is unclear reasoning. Now, here's a simple takeaway. This wave of layoff is not about machines replacing humans. It's about leaders deciding what work truly matters going forward. AI didn't force that decision. It simply removed the excuse to delay it. If you found this helpful, take a moment to reflect on how your organization is approaching this change. See you in the next video for more executive level breakdowns of complex issues.